In 2025, the world experienced one of the most defining government shutdowns in modern history. At first, it seemed like another political standoff, another disagreement between leaders who couldn't agree on budgets, policies, and priorities. But what no one expected was how deeply this shutdown would affect ordinary people, global markets, technology, and the future of world governance all the way to the year 2050. This is the story of how a moment of collapse in 2025 became one of the biggest catalysts for change humanity has ever seen. And it all begins with something simple: people realizing that the world they once trusted to run smoothly could suddenly stop overnight. When the 2025 shutdown began, millions of citizens around the world watched the news in disbelief. Public services slowed down, national parks closed, government workers were left without paychecks, airports faced delays, and global trade felt the shockwaves. It wasn't just the United States affected. International partners who relied on data, funding, agreements, and policies found themselves stepping back and wondering what this meant for the world's stability. But as chaotic as it looked from the outside, something deeper was happening inside society. People were waking up. They were beginning to question how fragile the systems holding their lives together really were. By the time the shutdown reached day 20, something powerful started to shift. Communities began to organize independently. Social media was filled with volunteers offering support to unpaid workers. Local businesses stepped in to help keep essential needs accessible. People who had never participated in civic conversations found themselves speaking about the economy, politics, and leadership. And without even knowing it, the world was undergoing a major awakening. This awakening would lead to systems in 2050 that looked nothing like the ones the shutdown stopped in 2025. When the shutdown finally ended, leaders returned to their offices to a very different world. Trust had been shaken. Citizens were demanding more transparency, more accountability, and more resilience. The questions on everyone's mind were clear. How did we let everything depend on systems so fragile? Why wasn't there a backup plan? And most importantly, how could the world make sure this never happened again? Fast forward 5 years after the shutdown, and we start to see the beginning of global restructuring. By the early 2030s, governments worldwide had begun exploring AI-assisted governance. People were no longer satisfied with slow decision-making that could collapse entire nations. They wanted smarter systems that could predict crises before they happened and act fast enough to prevent shutdowns. And so AI wasn't just used for technology anymore. It was used to help stabilize societies. But the real transformation didn't show its full impact until 2050. By 2050, the world is almost unrecognizable compared to the era of shutdowns. Instead of relying on one centralized government system, countries operate with adaptive hybrid governance models. Part human leadership, part advanced AI ensuring stability and fairness. Budget approvals happen instantly. Policies are pre-tested using simulations before being implemented. Shutdowns are impossible because systems no longer depend on single points of failure. Every essential service has a digital backup operating system that keeps society moving, no matter what. The 2025 shutdown also changed the economy. By 2050, people work in what is now known as the resilient workforce. Jobs are designed so that interruptions don't leave families struggling. Global universal emergency funds were created after millions of people suffered during the shutdown. Now, anyone affected by national crises gets instant relief support. The world learned from 2025 that no civilization should collapse because politicians couldn't agree. Technology also took a massive leap. The shutdown exposed how outdated many government systems were. By 2050, digital identity systems make it possible for people to access services from anywhere in the world without physical offices. Elections are faster, more secure, and more transparent. Global cooperation increased because countries realized how interconnected they truly were. The shutdown also changed education. Future generations studied what happened in 2025 as a turning point. Schools introduced global citizenship classes, teaching the importance of stable institutions and responsible leadership. Civic engagement increased worldwide because people finally understood how powerful their voices could be. But perhaps the biggest change happened inside individuals. The 2025 shutdown taught the world the importance of personal resilience. By 2050, mental strength and emotional intelligence became as important as academic skill. People trained themselves to stay calm during crisis, to work together, and to adapt quickly. The world realized that stability starts in the mind before it ever reaches governments or economies. And yet, even with all the progress that emerged, people in 2050 still look back at the shutdown with mixed feelings. It was painful. It was unstable. But it forced humanity to evolve. It became a global reminder that sometimes systems need to break before they can rebuild stronger. The shutdown was not the end. It was the beginning of a new era where societies became more independent, more prepared, and more unified. When you look at 2050, you don't see fear of shutdowns anymore. You see a world that transformed because of it. A world that learned that leadership must be innovative. A world where citizens participate, where technology protects stability, where communities support each other, and where crises become opportunities for growth, not disasters. The 2025 government shutdown will always be remembered as the moment humanity realized that the world could stop. But what matters most is that humans didn't. They kept going, they rebuilt, they improved, and by 2050, the world became stronger because of the lessons learned from that single moment of collapse. This is how a shutdown turned into one of the greatest global transformations in history. Not by breaking the world, but by helping it rise to a future where stability is smarter, systems are stronger, and humanity is more united than ever before.